Welcome to Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski. In this show, we explore how truth comes to life through real stories and real people. Today, I'm joined by Simon Nielsen again, my friend, one of the leaders of Music of Life Church, the church that both him and I were part of the core leadership team that founded that church. And yeah, I just wanted to have him on again to do a deeper dive into the origin of Music Life Church, from home church to public church to multiplying into two churches. He has a great perspective of all of this, and I look forward to you hearing his stories. So yeah, let's dive in. Hey, Simon, welcome back to Unlocked. Good to have you. How you doing?
Good, Joel. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah,
Uh, Usually, once I talk to people for an hour and do the majority of the talking, they don't want to meet me again. So, thanks for having me back.
yeah, I never said I wanted to. I was pushed to, but uh, no, it was great. I'm actually really excited to go. You and I both are people who appreciate the details, and there's definitely some deep dives I wanted to take with certain parts of the story. You and I have been working together in like the core leadership of Music of Life Church for since its inception,
Right.
and there's been a long time of us being friends and working with each other. We're both pretty nostalgic guys as well, and we both were around when the home church started. So I just love to hear. I've heard it before. I've heard some of the thoughts and feelings you had from this transition from home church to public church to where we are today. And it was very different from my experience. So I always love hearing what your thoughts were during those times. And I think the audience will appreciate it as well. So let's just start. We've been in this church for a long time, but it did start in a home. So what was that home church experience like for you? What was appealing to you about it? How did it impact your life? I'd love to hear your take on that.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Last time I think I shared about you going to that like men's night hangout where you and I met.
Yeah.
That we used to get together on Thursdays, and I remember at some point it went from Perkins. I mean, sorry, a diner
A
where
franchise diner
yeah,
in the Midwest. Yep.
yeah, yeah. Uh, So we went from meeting at this restaurant to at some point it transitioned to your brother's house, and he had like a screened in porch, and so we started hanging out there. And I'm not sure, but I think it might have been around the time smoking got banned in like all restaurants and public places. So I think we transferred
Yeah.
because all you guys just freaking chain smoked like nobody's business.
Yeah.
But
If there were like 10 people in a booth, there were 8 of us who were smokers, and there were at least 3 cigarettes going at all times.
oh yeah, did did your dad did Wayne smoke at that time?
A man named that was an older gentleman who smoked at the time. Yeah, he did.
Like throw him under a bus or something?
he,
What was that
he would,
about?
yeah. Well, maybe we're far enough removed from it now, but at the time, he kept a smoking glove in his car and a bottle of Brut cologne,
Oh, okay.
like some mouthwash or mint. So he would if he smoked before church, he'd, you know, delusional, think that he wasn't, smelling like smoke. But yeah, anyways,
Gotcha.
yeah, we were most of us were smokers.
Yeah. Oh man. Um, so let's see. Yeah, so it went from that group and then I think from there is where I at some point going to that, I told all you guys I didn't want to talk about God or, I told you where I was at and so much what we talked about had nothing to do, at least directly with God. It was just a bunch of guys venting and helping each other.
Yeah,
Um, and then like I said, I started to slowly like get help and like I would notice the weeks I went, my week would go better, and the weeks I didn't go, all of a sudden I'd find myself in a hole that I dug for myself again, and so I'd come back to get help to get out of the hole. But eventually, I like asked John um, for a copy of Modeling God, And that was like when it was still a manuscript. And then I think for like another 4 or 5 months, I never read it until my life was bad enough where I did get read it. And and anyway, so then once I read that, and that after that I like came off my depression meds. You know, I talked about how much that book helped me. But I remember being at like hanging out at your brother Andrew's house, and uh we were in the screen porch, like sitting out in his backyard in the screen porch area. And I knew that there like people were meeting for church on Sundays. And I don't think anybody was going to like directly invite me just because what I had shared about God, and they weren't going to try to pull me into something. And I just asked, I asked like, what has to happen to be able to come? He's like, "Wow." He's like, you want to come? And so then he just texted the group that normally would meet, and you know, said, hey, is it cool if Simon comes? And everybody said yeah. So that's how I started going. And man, I remember we'd all like, I think it started at Laura's house, and we'd always, you know, I'd always go and buy this giant bag of bagels from from this bagel shop that used to be in town, and like all this cream cheese, and we'd have this spread of bagels, and nobody would ever touch the bagels. They would just sit there. We'd
four
have like,
bucks a piece.
yeah, exactly. We'd have like 12 bagels, and at the end of it, anyway. So, but yeah, so it was this this home church where, and so much of it was, it felt like a more intentional version of Screen Porch that wasn't just guys,
Yeah.
because so much of it, like, so much of it was everybody just sharing about their weeks. And it was like we'd come together, we'd eat a little bit of something, and we'd share. And I think, your dad was always there. Was he there from the beginning? Yeah, and would do like a small teaching, and we'd all kind of talk about that or share off of that. Um, yeah, and it was just, to me, it didn't even, like we always say home church. It didn't really feel like, at least at the start, I remember it didn't feel like a church. It just felt like we were all hanging out again and talking and sharing, which is what we did during the rest of the week, anyways. It just felt like now it felt like we just had a set time to do that on Sundays, and we'd have like a little bit of teaching beforehand.
Yeah, I
Um,
remember. Well, to go back, maybe you didn't know this, but John had set a measure, like told God, the people who ask me for a copy of Modeling God before the new year, I'm going to invite, like him and Laura, like invite to this small group.
gotcha.
And you had asked them before the new year, so you were on the list. So like, I think you're right as far as like nobody wanted to push it on you, but like the idea was like right from the start. Although Simon wasn't here the first couple months, was like Simon's in. So when he's ready, he's in. That's why it was all like, I think Andrew was just like, okay, like Simon's finally ready to come. And but I agree. Like the way I tell the story is, yeah. Did you
I
know that?
just, no, I didn't, but I'm just imagining that it wasn't even so much as that, as John probably just forgot that I was part of that, because he seems to always forget that I was even a pastor, that I was present at anything that I was present at and was a part of.
Like he
Yes,
tells you stories about the origin story of Music Life Church, and you're like, John, I know I was there.
you're just, it's that scene from Wayne's World. Oh, you guys should have been there last night. Phil, we were there. There was this band playing Crucial Tot. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Phil, we know.
Yeah.
We were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So I remember. I think we started January of 2007. I think by March you were coming every week, and but it was very much, and the way we tell the story now, that's the home church, right? That's when the home church
Mhm.
started. But I don't think we were calling ourselves. We weren't calling ourselves a church.
Mhm.
Not when we first started meeting. I think we all had aspirations to, and I think an idea this might become. or it likely will become something more than what it is right now. But we didn't really know what that looked like. And I always look back now and I think it clearly was the beginning of Music Life Church. But I think the cause of church we were mostly focused on was fellowship.
Right. Oh yeah,
It was
exactly.
just like it was be like we'd get together, it'd be like 7:30 in the morning, and it would be like 3-4 hours of just straight sharing. Like sharing the deepest things you've ever shared in your life. And most of us were either in or just shortly out of one of the hardest things we've ever been through. So there was a lot to share, a lot of and I think a lot of learning how to share too. So yeah, man, that was incredible time.
Oh my God. I remember I remember for a big chunk of it, I would always give your brother rides, not Andrew, but and every morning I'd pull up and text him, and almost every morning I'd text him, I'd wait 5 minutes in the driveway, then finally I'd get a text back like, "Sorry, I just woke up. I'll be right out." And we were always like 15 to 20 minutes late. And John finally was like, "Do we have to buy you an alarm clock? Like, what is your deal? Like get up." But but
Yeah.
yeah, anyway, to your point, I think I remember those mornings could be really, really tense.
Mhm.
And because it was like we had, I remember that's when Laura was talking about open, honest, vulnerable. Like basically everybody. It was like if we found out people were holding something back from sharing so that they don't, so that they appear to have it all together, or um so that they can, get away with something the rest of the week because they weren't sharing the whole story. I remember it was just like they'd get called out for it.
Yeah.
Not because we had this standard of you have to share everything, but because it was like we were trying to hold it, like, and I hate using this word when it comes to church stuff, but accountable. Like we were there to help each other grow. And you can't grow if you're not being honest with people about what's
Right.
going on and where you're at. So, yeah, to your point, like it was just a lot of sharing because that's what it was. I'm wondering if that's why our fivefold is just so close because we had few years right at the start where like fellowship was the measure for where are you at and how are you doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
every
really growing this emotion, this positive emotion to just and feeling safe to just share it. Like the stuff we'd share with each other was just like it literally the deepest things, the darkest things, the things that don't make you look good at all, dude. And everyone's response was always just like so safe and loving.
oh man, oh golly,
I
there's
cringe.
so many
I
stories.
cringe today thinking of some of the things I shared with a living room full of people.
Oh, I cringe today thinking of some of the things that some of the other people shared with the living room full of people, and I'm really fighting the urge to bring them up right now.
Yeah.
But anyway, so let's move on before I do. Um, I don't need a defamation lawsuit.
Right. Yeah.
Allegedly, there was
Yeah.
some person. Um, anyways, yeah. So that's kind of what it was like at the beginning. Yeah, and then it kept growing to the point where it was like, well, now we need because sharing was such a big part of what we were doing. Um, we split up. We basically ended up being like we should get into two different groups. And so I think one kept meeting at Laura's house and one was at your house or your mom's house or whatever. And
Yeah.
um, yeah, because it was just so much time for sharing. And
So we always, yeah, everyone got a time to share. So
you
yeah,
know,
when all of a sudden you got 25 people, it's like, dude, I don't have time for this.
Oh man, especially with me. I was like, it used to take me. I still get crap about that from people,
Yeah.
but it's like, you know, everybody still is like, yeah, Simon's grown so much, it doesn't take him 30 minutes to tell you what he had for breakfast anymore. Like, I just remember because I'm so internal and so small picture, and just when my thought process still wasn't great, I just remember like talking slow while I was trying to think of what to say. And it was just like, oh God.
Just
But
all
anyway,
these extra thoughts, like like trying to manage, like how do I tell this story? Which thought do I go with? Which version? Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, oh yeah. So
But
we really had, if you count 2007 to 2013, we had like 6 years as a home church.
holy moly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So what we've
crazy.
really talked about right now is really just like the first couple of years was how it was. And I think it was, we kind of went through these different versions of what we were doing. Like, are we a church? Are we a ministry? Do we want to start a church? Do we want to just be a ministry who goes in and helps other
Mm,
churches? And, um, eventually we start getting some of the core leaders in Musical Life Church now. We're starting to come around. We're like that next generation of people coming to the home church, and this, group of younger people. And Jonathan was one of them too. So do you remember those days? What was that like when all of a sudden the home church is starting to kind of expand and like we get this new people? How are you feeling around that time?
pissed off.
Yeah.
I just remember, nah, I shouldn't say that. I just remember, yeah, it was just like the best thing I'd ever experienced in my life. And definitely it was the first thing that was like helping me make real progress. And I just remember even then, even before we came like a public church, just feeling like "Ah, this is going to get so diluted if we just keep adding people because like the concentration of like quality we had with that small group of people was so amazing that it was like this is all just going to get diluted if all of a sudden we have 25 people or whatever it would be. We won't be able to share as deeply. We won't be able, like, inevitably there's going to be more problem, like, yeah. So I remember not being pumped at first, and when Jonathan started coming around, like part of me was kind of happy, but there was a bit like him and I were like best friends for like a decent chunk of like our teenage years, and and maybe early 20s, and then we had a huge falling out, and I hadn't really talked to him in a handful of years. And so when he started coming around, part of me was like, how did he become a part of this? Like, because he was living in Illinois at that time, and like, and yeah, we still hadn't like buried the hatchet, as they say, like with this issue we had between us. And and I remember one like, but I remember as once he came around for a while and everything was like he checked out and he was like legit to me. He wasn't like fake old Jonathan that I knew. That was like enough for me. I didn't really feel like I had to get over anything else.
Yeah.
Um, it was just like, okay, he's a different person. I'm a different person. That we're fine. But I remember one Sunday, maybe it was a Sunday, maybe it was a Saturday, but we went outside and like just went to his car to just like hang out and talk through like this, this, it was a girl, of course it was, but
Yeah.
it was just talk over this thing that happened between us and this girl. And and I remember even then being like, what are we doing? Like, we don't have to do this. I'm fine. Yeah. We like sat in the car. And he's like, just tell me what you were feeling. And I think I did. Like, yeah, I was feeling like this. And like, he did the same. I was like, yeah, we're fine. We're good. I remember going back inside and John just being like, see, this is amazing. I was like, I didn't feel like
Yeah.
anything had really happened. But so,
It sounds
anyways,
like the work to repair had already happened before you guys stepped
yeah.
into that conversation, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that sounds like the currency for you is like to be real, right?
Yeah.
Because you got the BS meter, and it's like you can kind of sniff out when people are being fake. And
Oh man. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
sweet. So we go from 8 people in a living room to too much for one living room, and we split into two churches, or multiply into two churches for all you optimists out there. We kind of went through this are we a ministry, are we a church thing. I think what I appreciate about our stories, we never, it was always about the content, right? Yeah, we wanted to have this community, but we had a community. Now what are we going to do with the information God's given us? And that was always about the content itself. It's like, let's get this information out, and we don't have to be the face of it. Let's give, why bleed over something that's already been bled over is like a phrase I use a lot now, where it's like, if there's a church who wants to come alongside us, or that we can come alongside to just go in and help their leadership team, and they can be the face, like, let's do that. But, as we've talked about, all the persecution that happened against us, and doors being slammed in our faces, and sometimes doors opening and people inviting us in, only to within a few months, you know, be shooing us out of the door and slamming the door behind us, and
Yeah.
eventually getting to this point of really believing, again, because the content is the driver, we want to get the truth out. We got to be a church, because right now every door is being slammed in our face, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
eventually we go down that path long enough to be settled with, like, this is the only option we have. So we decide to become a church. It's 2013 at this point. What was that like for you?
Um, God, that's so crazy. I didn't, yeah, just thinking about what was like going on in my life, like professionally and everything. It doesn't seem like it was that part of my life doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but the church feels like it's been around a long time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so let's see, 2013.
Because what were you
Uh,
doing? You just had started working at, like, being the head brewer at a major brewery here in Wisconsin, right?
yeah, and I think, yeah, it was right around, I think because I went to take my first course in brewing in Chicago, and I remember, I think coming back from that, and that week we had the dinner at your dad's house to like formally start the church,
Yeah.
ask Wayne to be the pastor, all pray in agreement, and proclaim to God, this is what we're feeling led to do. We're doing this, yada, yada. And that's always like in my head the day the church started
Right.
and it was formal. And yeah, and I remember being there and yeah, anyways, so I think that was that same week. So, so I like at the dinner, like all that, when it was the fivefold
Yeah.
and we were because the church was started on the fivefold and um yeah, I remember being like excited and also like I definitely didn't feel like I was one part of the team that was like driving this. It just was like, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, let's do this. You know what I mean? Like, let's sign me up. Let's go. Um, but yeah, but I remember, when we got the building at first, and I remember walking up to the church and just standing outside looking at the door and because it was like the building we were renting was a daycare now, but originally it was a church and it looked like a very like white steepled
Yeah.
typical church on the outside. And I remember standing there going, what the hell are we doing? Like this, we're about to screw up and throw away everything we've had the last, 5 or 6 years or whatever it was. And then, yeah, and I was wrong. But I just I remember walking in that morning just thinking we were making a big mistake. or feeling like like it had the potential to be a very big mistake. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I remember I felt very different. I think my eyes were so, at that point were so much on this journey of getting into full-time ministry. Which
I remember that being like a main thing for you for years. Like, how do I do this full time?
yeah, and that was I mean from I feel like from right when I really decided to live for the Lord was met with this experience of like, all right, I need to do this full time. And at the time I didn't know what that meant other than pastoring a church, right?
Hmm.
So that's where it's like go to seminary, grow as my ability to be a teacher. And it's like if we can become a church, I'm on the fast track to becoming full-time ministry. What
Yeah,
was just about this is all I want to do. I want to teach. I want to teach God's word. I want to teach doctrine. We're on the way there. And then we have Pastor Wayne, who's an exhorter by nature. Amazing. We needed it. We didn't, that was like the missing piece we needed, right? We needed a pastor who had experience managing a church.
yeah,
We needed a pastor who could inspire the people of this new church to feel like we're a church, to bring that attitude, that emotion.
right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because there's something different from being in a home to going and being public, right? Where you have to believe you're a church. If that's
Hmm.
missing, then the whole atmosphere is missing something. And Wayne would talk very early on about like, oh, within 6 months, within a year, we'll have 500 people. Granted,
Right. Oh, yeah.
he had
Yeah.
been a part of a church that within a year and a half went from like, you know, 50 people to like 1,200.
Yeah. How'd that work out?
Well, yeah, he ended up getting a job out of it. Yeah. Then how did that one work out? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, listen to
But
Julie's episode. It was the third one. But yeah, and that he's exactly what we needed, right? But I remember there being this like, oh, this could get big real fast.
yeah.
And so I was always really excited. And I think I was, and at the same time, I'm double majoring, going to school full time, a single dad half the time, working full time at Starbucks, learning how to be a pastor of a church. So I was like, yeah, my eyes were very much on this would make my life, delusionally like this will make my life easier if I could
Oh,
just focus
sure.
on pastoring and just taking care of these people and, um, maybe for good and bad reasons, but definitely a lot's changed since then. But yeah, so those early days, we were like, I feel like one of the things that was great about Music Life Church when we first started was we did have we did have a leadership team. We did have a mission. We did have this foundation of intimacy, of closeness. So I never felt like we were in danger of this thing falling apart. And maybe that's just because I was just ignorant of it. Um,
That's what I believe. But
yeah. Did you ever have any issue? What you believe
I
I was
just called you
ignorant?
ignorant and you walked past it.
Oh,
God,
I was just literally
how
ignorant.
ignorant
You
are
calling
you?
me ignorant, dude? I'm like, it's just like, I'm just, I'm just, yeah. Is that what you believed, Simon? What else?
I don't think it was conscious. I just like felt it. You know what I mean? So, God, that guy is daft.
So was there any time in the early days, especially, right, where there's this feeling of like, how long is this going to last? And also like, can you touch on when, if ever, did you get to the point where it's like, oh, we have something here? And what was that?
Sure. Well, just you know, what you just said about your dad and just needing somebody to like make this feel more like an official, like organized thing that's moving forward. I we just had our anniversary service, 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, and I had to part of like me getting like my little speech thing together. I forgot why or what, but I went back and went through a bunch of my emails all the way back, and I found all these emails from your dad from way like to me, um, right at the start of the church, and it was like, and I looked through them, and it was like the one, and he referenced it during his talk at the anniversary service, but where he had reached out to me and asked, I'm going to need a pulpit. Will you build me one? And,
Oh man.
and like, but I just remember reading these, and there was a few of them right in a row, and every single one, he was like addressing me, like very caringly, um, and signing off as, your pastor, Wayne, like that. And I just like, and I just remember getting hit by that 2 weeks of let go. Is like he, as soon as we asked him to be our pastor at that church, he was treating it like he was the pastor of a church.
Yeah.
One of the things I remember him saying early on too is like, and I don't remember if he even said it, I heard you and Jonathan talking about it, but it was like, we're going to need people to have their eyes on everything to make sure everything's running smoothly when people come. Like, we need to make sure if the bathroom runs out of paper towels or if the bathroom runs out of toilet paper, like, who's going to take care of that?
Yeah.
Because we have to make this like help people feel comfortable here. And and I like that was just something so foreign, I think, to all of us. Like that, I don't know any of us would even thought about that right away. Um, besides maybe Morgan, but but like
Right.
uh, but still, every Sunday, as a leader at Music Life Church Appleton, but since that church started, every time I go to the bathroom there, I'm checking the paper towels. I'm checking how does the if there's, paper on the ground, I'm picking it up to make like, and that goes through my head every single time. So
Yep.
yeah, so like, yeah, so Wayne took it seriously. It felt like this church. Sorry, what was the what was the
Yeah,
question?
like
You were
what were
trying to
there
move
any
forward. Yeah.
trepidations or I mean it's
Mm,
part of your answer there is like is this maybe getting to like the when did you feel like we really have something that's going to
yeah,
last here?
sure. Yeah. I don't think that took too long. I I think by the time I left, which was like early December of 2013, when I moved away to Amherst, I felt like I know by then it was just like, yeah, we have this is a church. Like, so I think I felt within, 3 or 4 months, it was just like, okay, no, this is going to work because we had this foundation,
Yeah.
and um, we had this foundation, and I saw how we were carrying that into, a formal church setting. And I trusted all, like, you and Jonathan were both pastors right away, and I definitely trusted you guys to do the right thing. We've always had John as like a counsel,
Yeah.
to kind of like while we dealt with stuff to be able to go to John. But I was just so like hands off, which I'm sure you're well aware of. But like, first, you know, 5 or 6 years of the church, I was just like, I was basically a member that also ultimately had this, role and title and responsibility of being a founding fivefold member. Um, but besides helping with setup and cleanup, sometimes, I I wasn't doing a whole lot to pitch in. Um, and I was so focused on my like at that point my brewing career, and I didn't live in Appleton, so it was just
Right.
like yeah, we have a real church. I go to it on Sundays, and yeah, so
Just far enough away to be a pain in the ass to drive into town on a weeknight, right?
yeah, an hour each way, like
Yeah.
yeah, but it's worth the drive, and um, but yeah. So anyway, so that's kind of how I felt with that with the church and with the church starting, and Um, yeah, it didn't take real long for me to have faith that what we were doing was good and
Man.
on the right track. And I remember this maybe is a a testament to that. But like, I remember when we had like a dinner at John and Laura's house when they were living in Milwaukee when Music Life Church Appleton was starting, and so Pastor Jonathan was becoming a senior pastor. We were having this dinner to kind of celebrate that, and it was the fivefold and our wives, and and I remember John and Laura, or Morgan, Laura, and Elena going outside to grill the meat for the dinner, and so it was just the guys at the table, and I was at the point now where I was going to be becoming an associate pastor. And
Right.
then we had the two of you guys who were the associates from the day the church started, and John, who was basically the main people that was on the council for you guys and for the church leaders. And I'm sitting there completely oblivious to really all the work you guys have been doing for those, yeah, like I said, like 6 years or whatever it was, while I was off living in, central Wisconsin, and just attending on the weekends pretty much. And I remember at one point, like we were talking about like all the potential hurdles that were going to be happening, and all these things we had to be aware of. And we're starting from scratch again with this new branch of the church. And I remember somebody said something like that was, kind of speaking to the fact that like this could all go wrong if we don't handle this right. And I remember going, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? And John just looked at me. He's like, the wheels of this church have been so close to falling off so many times. Like, how ignorant are you? Like, are you kidding me? Like, you had no idea what's been really going on. And I didn't. I had no idea. But that's how safe it felt, and how together with it felt, and how good. And I think that speaks to how well you guys were doing. Uh, because the church always just felt safe and stable. Like, and it was like, you know, I don't think most people, until they get into a place of leadership, like where and when I say leadership, like you are personally responsible
Yeah.
for if something goes wrong, if something bad happens to the people that are in your care, anything like that, that you could have helped with and you didn't, or you should have seen coming and you didn't. Like, I don't think people understand really the work that goes in. Like, caring for your flock, it's not what happens on Sunday mornings. Like, it's not the sermon you give on Sunday mornings. That's not the caring for the flock.
Right.
That's like, that's just such a small piece of the pie. And like the rest of it is like, how is this person doing? Wait, what happened? Like, what's going on? Like, who's reaching out to them? Are they okay? Like, and it's just, even with a group of 20 people in a church, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I just had no idea how much you guys had actually been doing. Um, so yeah,
I appreciate that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We did. You were one of the people we had to deal with a lot. Yeah.
Oh, dude, that is like every time I'm having to like deal with somebody else that's being frustrating and keeps making the same mistakes. As mad as I get, all that goes through my head. It's like you were this person, and people helped you, and you owe it to help this person now. So yeah, sorry about that. Thank you and sorry.
Yeah. Thanks and sorry. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, I get it. That's a real, actually, it's something I think Jonathan taught us, like a really great way to provide that level of safety for others is to remember how people did that for you first.
sure.
And
Yep.
it's like, I want to treat, like, man, this group, we talk about the home church and how safe you and I felt to share. And I know there's shit I was sharing back then that was just like, are you kidding me, dude? Like
Yeah,
25-year-old Joel walking in, you know, spouting his mouth off about watching porn the night before or something stupid. Like, okay,
right. I remember somebody, and I won't say it, but I remember somebody in the church just being like, who was like talking to you regularly and helping you, just being like, I just told Joel to put watch porn on his daily schedule. Like, just add it to your calendar, Joel. Like, at least be intentional about
Yeah.
it. If, don't try to keep pretending like you're not going to do it if you're saying one thing and doing another. Just own it if that's what you're going to keep doing.
Yeah,
And
it
I
just
was
makes
like,
it
whoa.
more damage. Yeah, because it just ends up doing more damage when you just,
Yeah,
are saying one thing and doing a different. So,
right.
but that was what it was like. Yeah, but I was safe, but I didn't feel that off of people. I
Sure.
always felt safe to share this stuff, as stupid as I look at it now, but it's like, that was the stuff that was on my mind, the stuff I was really battling with at the time. And just like to have people there to care for me during those times was like, I want to be that. So that's always kind of the switch I do in my brain when I'm dealing with somebody who's maybe a hard case for me, is just like, I was a hard case for people too at a time,
Yeah,
and might still be for certain people. But
sure.
so as we get near the end of this one, I know we also went through where we're at today is like we multiplied into two churches during the pandemic when a lot of churches were closing down. We actually got stronger. All that intimacy we were built on from the home church is really what got us through and helped us thrive through the pandemic and through the lockdown and all this stuff, because what we did is it increased the amount we relied on one another. We chose to use that stimulus as a cause to increase the amount we shared quantitatively and qualitatively. And I can see a trajectory now where it's like there's things that were put in place during the pandemic that have just now become part of how we interact with each other as a community.
Yeah.
Makes sense. It would have resulted into having two churches. But we look back to the story of like home church, origin of Malk, to now we're like two churches thriving. There's a lot of energy right now, a lot of transition happening, a lot of transformation happening. But there was a lot of damage in the past that we also had to deal with. A lot of those doors being slammed in our face. And it's hard not to allow that to quench some of the fire of sharing really the work God is doing within our lives and within the lives of our loved ones in this community. And I've seen a big reinvigoration, if you will, in your life just over the last couple of years. If, as we've done there's a documentary being made. We're doing a lot of reminiscing about the old days. We're being asked a lot of questions about the origin of Music Life Church. And we're also in this really cool season right now of a lot of change happening and a lot of expansion and a lot of growth. So I'd love to, as we close here, is like, can you kind of bring us through what was it that got you back to like wanting to amplify this message as much as possible?
Um, like I think it was a couple of things. Yeah, 'cause, like so yeah, during the documentary, during the filming, um, you know, for my interview for it, forgot what it was, but I started sharing about what it was like when I first, got off antidepressants, when I first got off, when I first started getting my life together, and how did I feel about that, and what was my attitude towards all the stuff I had learned, and I just remember talking about like how how much I just was excited and wanted to talk about this stuff with people. And like I remember, like, because I grew up going to youth group and I watched all, including myself, all of our friends who had grown up Christians their whole life, all through high school. Like, we all went to youth groups together. We'd go to multiple youth groups throughout the week together. Like, it's just what we did. We bonded over it. Like, we were fun kids, we were good kids, but we weren't doing like all the like a lot of like the really bad stupid stuff that you hear about kids doing, you know. Um And it was this really close group of friends. And after we all kind of got out of high school and started going to college or doing this or doing that, everybody pretty quickly, I'd watched the majority of all of us just kind of go, man, what was this God thing? Like, because now that I'm out in the real world, like I don't see it helping me, like a lot of the stuff I learned. And so so when I learned this stuff, I was like jacked to share it with people. Like, so I'd hang out with people and be like, hey, this is what's been going on with me. Like whenever I get together with people to catch up, this is what's been going on with me. I'm so excited. Here's this book. Do you want to borrow a copy? Can I get you a copy? Like, God, like this is what's in it. This is how it helped me. This is what grace is like. And I just remember I had forgotten that I used to be like that because of all the stuff in subsequent years that happened from so many of the churches in the Fox Valley here, where and then because of that, so many of our group, my group of friends, and it just felt like everybody was so against it, was, cult, Simon's in a cult. And it's like, look at me. I'm doing better than I ever have been.
Right.
Like, either why shut up and help me? Why couldn't you help me? Because I was the most depressed I ever was when I was around you fucking people. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
so either like, wouldn't a friend, and this includes my mom, like, wouldn't you be happy that I'm doing well?
Right.
Like, like my mom saw me like just spiraling out of control. I finally get it together, and she can't bring herself to be thankful to the people that helped me about it. Like, that just felt like a knife in my back. Like, so you're more worried about how you feel than the person you supposedly love getting healthy. Like,
Yeah.
that's really sad. And and then I guess that's how I felt about all my friends. And so, you know, uh, I would say it was that. Like all of a sudden, when I was describing that, it just hit me. Like when I was mid story, it just hit me. I stopped talking. I got choked up because I completely forgot that there was a time I wasn't scared to tell people about this book, Modeling God, that helped me. I wasn't scared to tell people about any of the stuff, and I was jacked to do it. And I forgot how much that had been crushed out of me. And I just got into this place of like, this isn't going to do, no, nobody cares. Nobody wants to hear it. And every time I bring it up, like it just, gets knocked down. So it was that, I think realizing that was a big catalyst. And then I think when we went to Scotland to, for that first service at
Yeah.
Relight Church and helping this group of people over there get their church up and going and seeing this big group of people in a different country, like not even just in Scotland. Like there's people from all over the UK coming from Liverpool, London, like that were driving to like the middle of Scotland to be part of this service and to get baptized in the river. And it was like I remember sitting in the service and the whole time, like just sitting in the back like this, arms crossed, witnessing this and just tears the whole time. I was just
Yeah.
crying, like silent tears. And I just had so many emotions. And but the overall thought was like, I'm not crazy. Like, it just like, I'm not crazy. This is helping people. There's this group of people in this different country that are like doing the best they've ever done. They're getting off antidepressants. They're like, um, getting their lives together. Their marriages are doing better and better. And it just felt like screw everyone.
Yeah.
Like I don't care anymore. Like now I just feel like for the people that are still being negative and still saying like I just feel bad for them. And it like on it, it's not even I feel bad for them, and it's just like it's pathetic to me. Like it's just like how miserable are you? like that you have to that you still have this like chip on your shoulder, like that you're still carrying around. It's just like it's so gross. Like it's just so fucking gross to me. Anyways, so yeah, so I'm just and I remember recently too, the other thing is one of my old friends' wife passed away. You know, she was only 40 years old. She had cancer. I hadn't seen this guy in like really hung out with him in like 16, 17 years. And I just remember feeling like I need to be there for him right now. And so I drove down to Milwaukee with another friend from high school. And there was these other kids from high school that or and from like our friend group that were there and they had kind of left the Fox Valley before all that started. And they all were so excited to see me. Nobody was weird with me. Like so many of these like other people. And I just remember just going like, part of this is me. Like I'm applying because I got so hurt. I just applied this to everybody else. I just went,
Yeah,
everybody must feel this way.
yeah,
Everybody must be talking about me, and I get it. Like that's not true. Like it's not true. Like I don't want to be think so highly of myself and so like I'm so important that everybody must be saying these negative things. But I remember coming home from that and just feeling like on the ride home, thanking my friend, the one that drove us down there, and just been like, dude, it just meant a lot to me that I can talk to you about this because this has been my experience. And to be around people today that were just happy to see me, that weren't weird, that didn't have like this unsaid, unspoken thing between us that we were both pretending didn't exist.
yeah,
Like it made me like all three of those things together just made me go like, yeah, what I'm done letting these people weigh me down.
yeah,
And it was probably wrong. I was wrong to ever do that to begin with. Um, so yeah, I'd say that's those three things together are kind of what made me start going, I need to reach out because there are people that do need help and want it. And I feel really bad for anybody that would get in the way of that because either I'm wrong, and whatever, or these people are massively wrong. And I would hate to be on the other side of that.
yeah,
I would hate to be opposing something that's actually helping people because that is fucked, especially if you're a leader in church. It's like, then you shut up and do something about it. You help them because
yeah,
they left your church to come here and said they finally got help. Then shouldn't you be happy? Like, I know when people leave our church to go to a different place and they're like, yeah, no, I'm doing good. Like, I'm doing good. I feel like I'm supposed to be here. This is good. Thanks for everything. And it's like, great,
right.
good.
Yeah,
That's amazing. Because all I want is for you to be doing good. Because
yeah,
that's the point of this.
yeah.
It's not to be right. Like,
No,
anyways, so
I love it.
people suck. Some people suck.
But you can't help but love them, Simon. That's why it's so great.
I don't suck. I'm amazing. Everybody's stupid except for me. As Homer Simpson once
Oh, it's great.
said.
Oh man, Simon, thank you so much. This was incredible. I had a bunch of questions for you that really you just did so great answering just out of nowhere, right? And like no prep really for this one. So thanks. You're a great storyteller. Great. Oh man. I'll have you on again. We'll have to find another thing to do a deep dive on for sure. Maybe
Sure.
maybe we could get deeper into the Scotland trip or something, but
Yeah, we can do that. We can talk about the Civil War. You know what I mean?
you
Because I
can,
think that still has impacts on this country that nobody's talking about
no,
enough.
yeah, we could. I'll do some research and find some good questions for you for next time. Okay. Cool, man. Well, thanks for being on. We'll see you soon.
All right, see you.
All right. Awesome, right? So let's dive in a little bit deeper. One of the things that is pretty clear in this story about Music of Life Church and the home church especially is really the cause that we were founded on at the very beginning. It was fellowship. And fellowship in the Greek comes from the word koinonia, which means social intercourse. So essentially, it's the deepest level of intimacy you can get to at the social level. So we're talking really mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical, and sharing in all of those areas. And that was what we were really, really doing as a home church. It was a group of 8 people at the very start sharing the depths of their heart with one another, and really just not worrying so much about what you looked like, and just sharing because it was cathartic and because we were getting help from the people that we're sharing with. So one of the things that Laura taught us early on was, we call it OHV. It's open, honest, and vulnerable. Since then, we've adjusted it slightly to OTV. It's open, truthful, and vulnerable. The idea there is, open means willing to share, willing to share. I'm open to share anything. The honest, which means factual, went to truthful because we really want it to be not only factual, but also shared with the right how and why, is, yeah, getting to the core of just having integrity over the things we're sharing. And then vulnerable is the qualitative side of things, just the depth. So open is kind of this, you think of it as like wide, sharing in a wide range of things. Vulnerable would be at the deepest level, and then truthful meaning, you know, with integrity. And that was like this foundation. Everything we shared, we tried to share along the lines of those principles. And what it did is, it not only helped us share in a quality form, but it also helped those that were hearing us hear the whole story, and feel safe, and grow in trusting of one another. So when I would share vulnerably and truthfully and open, it would be the best way for me to give them information where they had the most to work with, where they could give me counsel back and love back to me. Uh, but also, when people are sharing with you at that depth and width, it really does something to grow your connection, your intimacy with one another, and it just fosters this environment where everybody wants to keep kind of out sharing each other. And next thing you know, you become a family, and it's pretty incredible. So as we look at fellowship, one of the things I wanted to touch on here is why this is important, especially for a community, is it's one of the 4 causes of church. So if you look at what the 4 causes of church are, in Acts 2:42, you see there's the apostles' doctrine, there's breaking of bread, there's fellowship, and there's prayers. Now, what this does is, it actually shows us how to not only get what we want as a church, as it relates to the signs and wonders we want to see, our needs being filled, having all things in common, breaking bread in house to house and in the temple, on a regular basis. All these effects we want from a community to be cared for start with those 4 causes. Without those 4 causes, all of those results won't happen. So when we look at the 4 causes of church, it actually encompasses us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically as a community. So if you look at how are we meant to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our might, meaning our entire being, how are we meant to do that as a community, as a group of people, as a church? It's the 4 causes of church. So essentially, the way you can look at the 4 causes of church is, this is the way a group of people loves the Lord their God with all of their being, and loves their neighbor as themselves. The 2-part greatest commandment that Jesus taught in the Gospels. That's how the church does it, those 4 causes. Another thing, short rule that I like to think of when I'm communicating with people, that's right along the lines of this fellowship, this open, truthful, vulnerable, is also the idea of being careful and caring with your words. So careful would mean, I know the words I'm using, I know what they mean, and I can express them in a way where they're meaningful, where if you have questions about trying to understand me and what I'm saying, I'd be able to answer that to you. I'm being very intentional about the choice of words I'm using when I'm communicating with anybody. And then the caring side of things is, are those words for your benefit? So if I'm intentional with the word choice and the meaning behind my words, and I'm intentional with how I'm delivering them to you, again, this is a way for me to ensure that the communication we're having between us is edifying. It's building each other up. Even when it's confronting, it's done in a way that the other person is being loved. It's for their benefit. The next thing I wanted to address, there was this line that Simon talked about when he really started seeing the work that was being done in the church, was when he started being responsible for the work that was done in the church. He is stepping into this associate pastor role back when Music Life Church Appleton first started, back, right in the middle of the pandemic. And now all of a sudden he has experienced this church for, at that point, 7 years in a whole new perspective, because he's not only seen what's going on the outside, he's part of the team that is doing the behind the scenes work, the bearing of the burden of this church, of these people, in ways that a lot of people who are just members don't recognize, and rightly so. I mean, one of the burdens of being a leader is really bearing the pain of other people, bearing the burdens of what it means for people to be a part of a community, what it means for them to grow, what it means for them to find more of who they are, including the trauma they have, and how do they grow through all of that. And a lot of times when a leader's doing a good job, the work they're doing goes unnoticed. So it just, one of the things I wanted to emphasize, the definition of a leader is someone who facilitates the purpose and progress of others. And if you really understand leadership, what you find out really quickly is leadership is not about perks. Leaders, in fact, don't get perks. Leaders bear the responsibility. Leadership is a responsibility, not a perk. Leaders don't get a benefit up front. All the benefits leaders get are in the long term. And finally, I just wanted to address something Simon talked about at the very end. He went through this version of his story about how, he started, or he remembered this period of his life where he's really excited to share with people the truth of God that he was learning. But then through really bad responses from those people, this passion in him, this zeal was quenched. And he finally got to this point over the last couple of years where he's saying, I don't care anymore. And what does he not care about? Is like, I don't care about the people rejecting me anymore. I just am going to share. If this stuff has helped me, I'm going to share it with others. If this stuff can change the world and bring a benefit to the church, even if it means people don't like me for it, I'm going to share it anyways. So I really appreciate his vulnerability there, and his truthfulness over, recognizing he owned that it was his fault. He should have never stopped sharing in the first place. But now he's at a point where it's like, no, I'm going to keep sharing. And that's one of the big things that I've encouraged people to really grab a hold of, is when you're speaking the truth and you're doing it in love, well, it's God's truth. So when you're being rejected, it's not actually you even being rejected. It's the truth that's being rejected. And all truth belongs to God. So we don't have to take offense when people reject us in response to us sharing the truth. They're rejecting God. And in fact, if we have a better attitude about it, and if we learn to forgive those people, then God can even move on their behalf, or move to help break them even quicker and in stronger ways. So that's this mantra I've been telling myself lately a lot. What I've been learning is, like, so much of my life can be just focused in on this idea of speak the truth in love to as many people as I can, and forgive those who reject me or reject the truth, and move on to the next person. Speak the truth in love and forgive. That's what it comes down to. So what are you amplifying? That's it for today on Unlocked. I'm Dr. Joel Swakowski. You can find Simon Nielsen on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can also see a link in the description of this for a copy of Modeling God, which he mentioned again in this episode, was the book, the information in the book, the truth within that book was what has transformed his life, going back to when he first started reading it back in 2007 to where he is today and applying that information. It's truth is timeless. So the information in that book is still helping him today. The more he applies it, the more transformed he gets. So go check out those resources, reach out to Simon. If you want to hear more of his story, I'm sure he'd be happy to connect with you. Thank you for listening. Keep seeking truth. Keep living it out. We'll see you next time.